We continue our story at the Kimura village, where everyone just kind of got the revelation that Malzeno can now speak. And it obviously, catches everyone off guard, even though they are still grateful that he did save them from a Magnum which he scarred horrendously. And this is where Fiorin pretty much asks, so you can talk? To which Malzeno says, it surprises me as well, but I can actually understand you all quite fluently, albeit I have worked alongside you for centuries. But it seems a magical being or hooded figure has seemingly given me this as a curse or something. To which Fiorin is like, you sound quite... what's the word I'm looking for? To which he says, charismatic, charming, elegant. To which Fugin's like, alright, you're gassing the ship up a little bit. To which Malzeno looks at him like, oh, really? To which he's like, you know what? My bad. And this is where Malzeno begins to explain that so far some of the current anomalies have been a little strange. He fought a dragon that can manipulate wind, to which Fugin's like, the wind serpent Ibushi. It has actually caused quite a bit of a disturbance lately, and being able to take it out should be, well, actually a big benefit. And this is where Malzeno also drops something else, this being a Kuro, the Kuro that he took from the risen Valstrex he had slain earlier. And he simply states that it's more powerful than what it was before, being able to affect Elder Dragons. To which Fiorin says, wait, so... that means, to which Malzeno says, yes. It's very possible that Geismagorn has been gaining more and more power. And if he's taking from other Elder Dragons, causing them to evolve, and still taking more power, this could be an issue. To which, this is where Fugin thinks. Afflicted monsters, Apex variants, risen Elder Dragons? To which Malzeno's like, What do you mean, Apex monsters? And this is where Fiorin begins to explain that Apex monsters have actually been recently appearing a lot more since the, coming of the Wind Serpent Ibushi, and likely its mate, Narwa. And this is where she actually begins to explain what the afflicted monsters have been happening. While they are slowly dying, they are much more dangerous than what they were before. To which this is where Malzeno actually does decide to work with the guild. He'll handle the Apexes and the Risen if they can handle the afflicted monsters. To which a deal is made, and Malzeno goes off. To where Fiorin does get her next mission from the guild. While she actually does go handle a afflicted Astalos and Anjanath, this is where Malzeno heads to the Shrine Ruins and finds a Anjanath corpse. Keep in mind that, Fiorin's like in a whole different area entirely, so him finding an Anjanath corpse, he's like, still fresh despite its pulverization. Not gonna let this go to waste. So he actually starts to eat the Anjanath. I mean, you guys gotta understand, while he is a bit more elegant and a gentleman here, he's still a dragon. He's still a predator. He gotta eat. But this is where something catches his attention. And it's a huge clash between an Apex Ozeros and a Risen Chameleos. And this is where Malzeno's like, their energy, it's primal. More powerful than I expected. The power they have is intense. But again, they are my mission after all. To which this is where Malzeno simply pretty much, flies down and creates a strong gust to separate between them. And this is where, it becomes a three-way battle. However, one key difference. Malzeno is vastly more intelligent. Understanding that the Apex Ozero seems to actually be able to get a physical upper hand on Chameleos, he decides to use the Chameleos' own poison against the the Apex Ozeros here. So, Malzeno's carefully and strategically utilizing his wings and his own Crimson Fire actually is able to bait, Chameleos into utilizing more and more of its poison. This does wear down Apex Ozeros to allow Malzeno to actually get in a lethal stab through its skull. Mind you, the bladed part of his wings, like up here, he stabs that right through the Apex Ozeros' skull, killing it. Then that just turns his attention to the Chameleos, and he hasn't done this in like a while, considering he doesn't really feed on elder dragons like that. But this is where he actually outmaneuvers Chameleos and pins it to the ground and bites down on it, siphoning all of its energy and, well, tasting the power it has. It's almost intoxicating. It's almost tempting. To which he then looks at the Aldros he killed, and then utilizing his tail, brings it towards his face, and actually begins to drain its energy from it. If I had to say how this looks, it would definitely look like a vampire drinking blood, because again, Primordial Malzeno, even in its like basic life state, is still somewhat of a vampire. Albeit, if you guys understand what he represents Dracula when he was a knight, which is his primordial form, or his original form, and then Malzeno represents when Dracula actually made a deal with the devil. So, just kind of a little bit of a, inspiration for the lore of Malzeno. Now you might say, well, did he make a deal with Geismagorn? I would likely say no, because again, elder dragons aren't really too frugal or too willing to work together like that. Well, I do think what happened was Malzeno actually got a taste of what the Curo could actually give him, and thus fell into that temptation, fell into that desire to be easily fed and kind of easily tempted, if you will. And this is why the entire premise of the story is, what if Malzeno wasn't corrupted? He never fell for that power. But now he's getting a taste for something stronger, something to make him more powerful, as he understands that the Curo are feeding on stronger monsters, elder dragon level monsters. However, after Malzeno is done absorbing his energy, he actually gains a new state. His full power seems to awaken, a potential unleashed, if you will. His crimson aura begins to flash, and his scales turn, blood-like red. It's crimson beauty itself. And he looks at himself. He's like, he's looking at himself in the water. He's like, wow, this power, it's everything. A way to get stronger. To which this is where a hooded figure actually appears, asking him, I hope you enjoyed it. I was hoping you would eventually get tempted by it. To which Malzeno does turn to the hooded figure and states, you're the one with the magic, not the physical one. To which she laughs and simply states, indeed, I will reveal myself to you in time. But unlike my colleagues, I simply don't want everything to burn, if you will. And to which Malzeno simply states, okay, if that's the case, then what do you exactly want from me? And this is where the hooded figure simply states, well, Malzeno, I want you to become stronger. You see, there is a threat here, not even from your world, from mine, or a combination of multiple realities. And I do think that if you help me, this can help you. And so Malzeno thinks about it and decides, fine, he'll do it. And so the hooded figure kind of guides Malzeno to these different locales, these different areas, while Fiorin is actually handling the afflicted monsters, actually getting a good rep, mind you, and Malzeno actually handles the apexes. He travels to the lava caverns, and this is where he and Fiorin actually do meet up again, as she is tasked with taking down a afflicted Rajang and afflicted Pyri Raknakadaki. Yeah, so she's got her hands full. But again, considering she is a high-ranking hunter and is taking the place of the main hunter, she got it. Yeah. But this is where Malzeno's handling the likes of a risen Teostra, able to overpower and slam it. However, he gets knocked right in the back by a massive fireball from an Apex Rathlos. So, this is where he adopts his knight stance and actually begins to handle the 2v1. Not only being able to kill them both, but siphons both of their energy. The power once again heading into his body, causing him to turn into this full power state. But now, his body's used to it. It's able to regulate and control it. And he feels himself becoming stronger, tougher, more and more durable, if you will, more and more powerful, if you will. Then he heads to the flooded forest, to where he actually has to handle an apex Rathian and an apex Mizutsune. See, Rathian herself is a bit difficult. He has to get around the poison, and understandably, he can't land most of the time. But again, when he baits Rathian into a full air battle, he makes sure he gets a hold of her, restrains her tail with his, and then begins to siphon her energy off, and just straight up, well, kills her just like that. And keep in mind, he's getting more and more powerful. Every time he siphons these monsters, it's like adding up power on top of power on top of power. And sometimes he does feel like maybe one day he'll burst. Maybe one day this power be too much. But again, he also understands that there is more going on. This creature or whatever it is, whatever these hooded figures or his allies, other, former allies, they're trying to break the walls down of his reality. And he can't afford for that to happen. So he's going to do what needs to be done in order to gain power, but not fall into the temptation of overly consuming. To which he goes in with that mentality, defeating the apex Mizutsune. Albeit he does admit that this thing did singe him, but there was one apex he just couldn't beat this time. This being Apex Diablos, aka Bloodbath Reborn. Its aggression, its strength, and he barely could get a foothold in this fight. So he decides to not only grab the creature by the horns when it comes in, but this time siphon it as it's still attacking him. And this causes both of them to tumble over a huge gorge. But with Malzeno already locked in, he decides to flip the creature on its back and slam it into the ground, partially crippling it, but giving him enough of an opportunity to restrain it. This creature was tough. It was harder to handle. And keep in mind, Fiorin finds the footprints and simply looks down at the ledge of the cliff, hoping and just praying, if you will, that Malzeno is alive. However, after he's done siphoning this bloodbaths, this Apex's Diablos energy, he begins to feel an unresidential pain. He thought it would come. This power, it's too much. But this is where the figure appears. And she simply states, well. Seems like you got yourself into a bit of a conundrum. And this is where Malzeno kind of sits there, feeling like the power is going to burst any minute if he moves. And he simply states, well, seems I reached my limit. It's nice that I actually know I could die like this. But this is where the hooded figure decides to reveal herself. Seline, a powerful magical mutant. And she simply states, well, my dear dragon, as promised I will reveal myself to you when the time is needed. And this is where Malzeno simply states, very well, Seline, what do you really need from me? And to which Seline is like, oh, always direct to the point. But listen, I'm here to help your reality. And in turn, this does benefit my other or my true allies on the other side. So here's the thing. I need you to actually handle this power. And I can give that to you. So, do we have a deal? To which Malzeno thinks for a minute and simply states they have a deal. And with a wave of her hand, Seline not only augments Malzeno's body, but allows him to become a well, if you will, being able to consume enough power to be able to handle it. And Malzeno simply states, now it's time for the final apex. And that's where we're going to leave it off here, you guys.